Hey everyone, it's Melanie here. So glad you could join me today for this fun Stamper's Journey Key to My Heart card tutorial. So first I start with a 5x7 card, and my first mat's 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and the interior mat's 4 1/2 by 6 1/2. So let's get into it. The card today is using Fun Stamper's Journey Key to My Heart. It's rubber stamped, so precious, and also the coordinating die set. We'll be using both of these today on this card. So the first thing I'm going to do is stamp my wings. That's what I chose to use, and I'm using Versamark embossing ink, which will be used because I'm going to emboss in just a minute. I'll show you that with some embossing powder. So I love my Tonic Studio stamping platform. It makes sure that if I need to restamp, which I always do with embossing ink, that it goes in the exact same spot as the first stamp impression I made. So you can see I'm applying some pressure here to make sure I have good ink on my cardstock. Carefully remove this. Move my stamping platform out of the way so that I can bring over, I use a coffee filter, guys, for my embossing powder. It catches it and it allows me to put it back in the jar pretty easily. So I use Recollection's champagne colored embossing powder, and I sprinkle that over the embossed wings, which you couldn't see on my cardstock, but you will here in just a second. And isn't that beautiful? The detail of these stamps from Fun Stamper Journey is so intricate. I mean, these wings are small. Look at that size compared to my fingers there. And I needed to add a little bit more just to make sure I have good coverage. So then with the embossing powder, I use a heat tool. And what this does is it heats up that embossing powder. It melts it, essentially. Melts the embossing powder and causes that, as it's heated, that will rise and make an impressed looking detailed image. You can catch it, a little bit of that glimmer in the light here and there, but it is just amazing. So fun to watch that powder melt every time I do this. It never gets old. So there's our little set of wings, and then I'll use the coordinating dies. And I like to tape those down on my cutting plates before I run it through my Sizzix Big Shot, which will do the cutting, die cutting. So I add my top plate there. The tape ensures that my image doesn't move as it goes through the compression of that Sizzix Big Shot. Then I take that out. I'll carefully remove, I just use washi tape so it doesn't tear my paper or my embossed image. So carefully remove my tape, and you have this perfectly cut, die cut image of the wings. So then I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to put this on this beautiful card. And that's a little flat and dull, so I decided to use the Sizzix Stacked Baroque dies, and I'm using coordinating that golden brown color that I used for my first mat. And I again will run that through my die cutting machine. Now this time I don't need my tape. It doesn't matter if it moves. It's just a Baroque little silhouette cut out there. Okay, so I've got that. See how that looks on my card now. And I'm thinking that's a little bit, I mean, it's pretty, it's tone on tone, but it's a little bit dull for those fancy wings. So I cut another one out of that blue-green color, which you can't see, but the middle of all those little medallions is that blue-green shade. And to kind of add a little muted thing, I did cut another piece out of vellum. And then I decided to pull out my script background for Doris. This is an embossing folder. And watch the magic that happens if you emboss vellum. This is so cool, guys. This is a technique I want to keep using in some of my cards. So I pull over my Sizzix Texture Boutique. This is one of the first things I bought when I started making cards, and I just love it. I could use my Sizzix, I mean, I have to switch the platform around and all that. So I just run it through my texture boutique and watch the results. Oh my word, I know you can see that on camera. The raised script is just beautiful on that. So again, I put it on that golden brown color. See what my wings look like. Still going with the Dolesville there. So put it on that blue-green shade, and I'm digging it. Now that is just the right amount of pop of color to set off those beautiful wings. So now that I've decided on the background of my die cut, and I love that script, I use Eileen's tacky spray whenever I use vellum. That way I don't have to worry about glue spots, or because you can see everything through the vellum. So by using that adhesive, it gives you a nice clean way to adhere your vellum to a background. And look at that. It's just gorgeous. Alright, so that's going to go right there. Somewhere in the center. And the wings, yep. Still liking it all. Looks great. So I need to do something at the bottom of my card, and I pulled out my Spellbinders Small Die of the Month from May 2020, which is the Stacked Decorative Edges, and I just love these dies. I have used them on many cards. So I'm thinking right along here, a thank you would be fabulous. If you haven't gotten these dies, this is not a very big investment through Spellbinders, and it is a wonderful club kit to start with. So what this does, it will cut out the sentiment, and it will cut out a frame, and then I'm back onto the vellum because I like that look in my center feature there. And look at that. So there's the thank you with the little vellum behind it. I'm loving it, but I'm thinking it needs another pop, so I use that same blue-green color to back my thank you, and look. Looks like I'm pretty satisfied with that. That is really looking great. So then I pop up my wings on some foam tape to give it some dimension on the front. Now I'll show you that a little later. So now onto the inside of the card. I decided to use paper from the front of my card so that it coordinates on the inside of my card. And I'm going to use a rubber stamp here from Tim Holtz. Says from the heart. So my card will say thank you on the front and from the heart on the inside. Coordinating papers that I used for on the card front in my mats. And I'm just going to use a couple of regular little rectangular dies. I'll run everything through my die cutting machine again, and I'll have these rectangular pieces for the inside of my card. And I also wanted this little frame. I think that looks good, but I decided to take that very inside piece of rectangle and just cut a smidgen off of each edge so that when I line it back up with my outside frame, which is sitting there to the right, as you can see in the frame here, it will show just a little bit of the inside color of the cardstock, if that makes sense. So I'll have an outside rectangle. You can see the background from the inside of the card color, and then I'll have this interior rectangle. So it's like a frame within a frame. You'll see what I mean here in just a second. So see, I'm going to put that one in, and then I'll put this little piece in, and you can see it's self-framing with just that little bit of background from my card. Next best invention ever, a T-ruler. Because I don't know about you, but obviously I can't see as straight as I thought I could. So I will adhere that outside rectangle using my T-ruler, which gets it very straight. Thank you, T-ruler. Then I can move on to my interior. I want to make sure my patterns line up from where I cut it apart. There we go. And then I will get my stamped sentiment added right in there, and I'm feeling pretty comfortable since I have my exterior frame all nice and straight. Okay, there's our From the Heart. Hey, looking pretty nice. So now the inside of my card coordinates with the outside. And last but not least, it's kind of like signing your work. I have a handmade stamp here that I use. I know I have a 5-inch width, so at 2.5 I stamp my little Vintage Hill Studio stamp, and look at that, there's the dimension all on the front and the coordinating inside of our card, and the signed, sealed, and delivered on the back. Thank you so much for joining me today. Come back and see me sometime. Melanie, Vintage Hill Studio.